What's up guys, and welcome back to another video on What If Deku Was the Avatar, Part 9. Now where we last left off, Deku was staying at the Air Temple for the night after making it over to the Avatar world by pure chance and coincidence. He didn't know how much time had passed compared to his original world to the world he's in. So when he was there, he kind of really wanted to go home, much to the dismay of everyone else that was there, questioning him, trying to understand how is he here and how does he, have the powers that he has. He tried to explain that he's just the Avatar, which Korra took at face value because she had no clue how he could do what he did. But he does what he does, and there's nothing I can say about that, Korra says. Tenzin's still kind of shocked by this. Even though he let Deku stay, he still had no clue what to do about it. Not only that, he also taught him a new form of airbending, which was air compression bending. Or Deku said if you don't want to call it air compression bending, you can just call it compression bending, because the base aspect is compressing things. Tenzin was still kind of shocked by this, because the pure aspect of compressing air was something that he did not know about. But it seems this boy was able to create it just fine without an issue. So Tenzin asked Deku at the dinner table. He's like, Izuku, how did you come up with air compression bending? The technique is widely strong. Seems like it can have multiple uses. Izuku responds, well, see, back in my world, we don't have bending. This kind of surprised Tenzin a bit, and he asked, you don't have bending, but somehow you're the Avatar for your world? Yes, well, you see, the issue is with that is that somehow Rava, the Avatar spirit, came to my world. She said she felt a dark imbalance in the world, but she couldn't really place where it was at or what's going on. Tenzin kind of thought that was weird. The spirit of light couldn't find out where the spirit of darkness was? That's strange. Next up, Tenzin asked, okay, so what does your world have? If they sent you over to Spirit Realm, that means at least someone had to know of your capabilities and prowess. Well, you see, my world has a different form of powers. I guess you can kind of paraphrase them as bending techniques in this world, but they're basically not the same. So what are your world's powers? Well, see, humans have evolved to have something that we call quirks. Think of quirks as like a very specific type of bending. What does that mean? Well, you see, the bending that us quirk users have is different than bending users, I guess. Deku said as trying to explain what a quirk is to someone who doesn't know what a quirk, he had to use bending for it. Tenzin said, okay, so what do quirks do? Well, you see, I guess I really can't call them friends. I only knew her for a little bit, but then eventually I was forced to separate from them all because of my, being the Avatarness kind of causes an issue and puts them all at danger. So they chose to separate me because of it. Tenzin thought that was kind of like shocking, because in this world everyone would have loved to be friends with the Avatar, but it seems like in the other one he was kind of counted as a danger, something that could not be trusted or controlled. Deku responded, yeah, that's basically it. They figured if I went to the Avatar state by accident again, that there would be nothing they could do to stop me. Even All Might knew that if he tried to get too close, he could get ripped apart by gale force winds and stuff. So what did they do? They sent me with a person called Gran Torino. Seeing how they wanted me to still become a functioning hero, they wanted to send me with a personnel who had an air-based quirk. So was this when you were trying to understand airbending? Yes. The quirk my teacher had, or I guess I can call him my teacher now, he had a quirk called jet boots. Basically allows him to use compressed air and shoot himself forward by using it. So basically the same thing as your bending. Yes, when I was coming up with compressed air bending, I was mainly thinking of Gran Torino when I was doing it. So, you're thinking of Gran Torino, whoever Gran Torino is. I guess he could be equivalented to what we count as an air nomad? I don't know about that. See, Gran Torino does not actually possess the same aspects of the air nomad culture as, say, you, Ain, or anyone else here does. Okay. Think of it more as like just someone got lucky and became an airbender, and then that is who Gran Torino is, basically. And because of that, his techniques are different than a traditional air nomad's techniques. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. That's the best way I guess I could explain it. Nothing else really made sense other than that, Deku said. Okay. Deku and Tenzin both hadn't touched their dinner, which alarmed one of the kids and said, "Hey, Mr. Male Avatar dude, eat your dinner." And Izuku's like, "Oh, I am very sorry." Tenzin kind of laughed, thinking, "Oh, well, we got kind of lost in conversation. Hey, Yun Izuku, please meet me after you're done with your dinner. I would like to discuss more about this separate world you came from and get a better understanding of it. Thanks to these techniques you were talking about, it seems like there's much to airbending that could be useful." Deku responded with, "Okay." Janora also decided to join in because she too wanted to know more about airbending, the pure aspect of it, and just how this boy who has the abilities of the Avatar came to her and introduced a brand new type of airbending that neither her nor her father knew of. Well, then she thought she really couldn't count it as a new type of airbending. It's just using airbending in a better way. Later on that night, after they finished dinner, Deku walked into Tenzin's study room, and Tenzin said, "So, back to our main topic of discussion. You were talking about compression bending, right?" "Yes. So, what's the base aspect of compression bending?" "Well, I don't know how advanced technology you have. You have cars, but it doesn't seem like you have a base understanding of atoms." "Atoms? Or the elements?" "We know what the elements are. Water, air, fire, and earth. What are you on about?" "No, those aren't the elements." "What do you mean?" "Currently there are 92 elements. I'm only going up to uranium because everything past uranium is synthetic, which they don't need to know. Each element is made up of 3 smaller circles, named protons, neutrons, and electrons. It's actually kind of hard to explain without giving a visual model. Can you hand me a piece of paper?" Tenzin agreed and handed Deku a piece of paper. Deku drawed a simple model of an atom and explained that this is an atom of oxygen. Oxygen being one of the components in the air we breathe. Now, when you imagine all the atoms in the air combine all different gases, you can compress them down into a pure form of gas, or you can compress it down in all the gases down into a compressed air, which is what compressed bending is based off of, compressing gases down. Tenzin's like, "So you're saying everything is made up these small little circles?" "Yes, everything. Me, you, the air, the sky, the flying bisons, we're all made up of the same things. We're just made up of the same things differently." "Okay." And Deku's like, "Okay, let me explain, okay? Say you mix..." How do you explain this? Say you put peanuts, M&Ms, Oh, no, wait, you guys don't have M&Ms here, do you? Peanuts. God, this is hard to explain in this world. Okay, drop the analogy. Say you mix together red paint, blue paint, green paint, and purple paint together, okay? You're gonna come out with a weird random color, right? Now, what happens if you strengthen the amount of purple paint compared to the amount of, let's say, green paint you put in there? The color's gonna be different. The same basic thing applies to stuff we create and stuff. For example, rocks are different elements. And the different elements, when combined... Okay, I'm not going to go into the science lesson Deku explained. Okay, so you're saying gaining an understanding of these elements could help forward bending. Yes. Now, I don't know how much it could help forward bending, because going off of what I heard Ain said, bending is a spiritual / physical thing. What does spiritual / physical mean? Well, for example, I know there's astral projection in airbending. It's a hard skill that's very hard to learn. I'm pretty sure Korra said only your daughter knows it. But astral projection goes against physics. Well, not exactly, Deku says. And Tenzin goes, what do you mean, not exactly? See, if you control the air around you, and you spread it out super duper thin, astral projection might not be what we think it is, Deku said. And Tenzin's wondering, what does Deku mean? See, for astral projection to work, as I heard from Ain while we were studying, he stated that you have to feel like you're one with the air. So, what happens if what that means is that you have to feel like you're one with the air? Tenzin's like, what are you on about? Okay, astral projection might be simpler than it seems. Maybe when you astral project yourself, you don't actually astral project yourself. You don't send your spirit. What you do is that you link your senses to the air itself. Huh? Think of it as like a sensory. Or like you're swimming through water. And the water can feel you swimming through it. And someone can feel what the water feels. So basically you turn the air to an extension of yourself. Yes. And I think the basic idea around flying is the same. Flying. That's an ancient air nomad technique that only one person knows. Yes. But the basic idea of controlling flight with airbending is still just a little bit out of my grasp. Okay. Is there any other things you would like to state? No, that's really it. The more I think about it, the more that I really can't explain it any better. The situations themselves are kind of specific. Airbending is an element that you guys really didn't develop. And Tenzin kind of took offense to this, and he's like, well, I've never heard of anyone diss airbenders before. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not bad-mouthing airbenders. I'm not saying airbenders were bad. Air nomads were not bad. They took their practice pretty diligently. Their issue is that they could never advance their bending. Tenzin still was kind of upset by this. His father was an air nomad. He's an air nomad, for Christ's sake. And this boy, just because he developed an entire new subsection of airbending, thinks that he knows everything about the element. And Deku says, let me explain it to you. Think about it. Airbending had never progressed in almost basically 300 years. Granted, 100 years was death, but airbending in the past is basically the same as airbending is now. When we look towards earthbending has changed a lot in the last 60-ish years or so, with metal bending and then lava bending on top of that. And don't even get me started on water bending with spiritual healing and spiritual destruction, as well as blood bending, Even though it's a dark art, it's still a technique of water bending. And then you have fire bending, which combustion bending might not be common anymore, as common, but lightning bending is common, and fire bending is pretty common too, seeing how you have to have fire to get lightning. But when you look to air, air only has air bending. Literally, that's it. And you guys lose techniques rather than gaining it. What, the most recent technique that was actually learned, I guess you could say, was astral projection? But before that was Ain's air scooter? Like, you gotta be kidding with me, guys. You guys barely progressed the element and only took it to where its base roots. It's like you guys are reading out of a textbook. Bending is not textbook based. You come up with your own techniques to suit your style. Don't get me wrong, learning the ways of your people and learning basic techniques are good, but if you never tried to excel anything past that, and you only try to be like the person before you, you're never going to excel, you're never going to grow. Tenzin was just listening as this boy kind of told him that, yeah, his way of life was kind of flawed. The reason why he could never understand astral projection like his daughter had was because his daughter actually attempted something that was not based off of air nomad basic knowledge. And maybe Zahir learned how to fly because he was not a normal air nomad. But Tenzin was so by the book that he barely learned any new techniques. And not to mention, he also forced the air nomad policies on newer airbenders. Tenzin sighs when he finally found out about this. He realized that he's been kind of a terrible man, be 100% honest. He's been a horrible airbender and didn't progress the element at all. He's a failure. Deku said, but at least think of this. At least thanks to you, we didn't lose our knowledge of the past. And without knowledge of the past, you can't really move forward. Think about it. Airbenders could have already been like the strongest element out of all of them, Deku says. Tenzin was kind of confused by this, and he asked for Deku to elaborate. Let's be simple enough by this. Just having the ability for airbenders to fly alone is a big enough ability to put them at top of the class. Tenzin kind of understood where he was coming from, but he asked him to elaborate again. Think about it, okay? If you're able to fly, you don't need to take regular transport. You could just fly wherever you want. Not to mention you can increase the speeds however you want, because as long as you know how to create an air shield around you, you won't have to deal with the air that is hitting your face, causing there to almost be no friction. You could fly super quickly. All you would have to care about is the G-force, which you can slowly build up to and get a tolerance for. Tenzin tilted his hand again and went, G-force? The gravitational force. Don't worry about it. You should know what gravity is, right? Oh, and Tenzin's like, yes, I do. Does it increase when you go faster? Yes, exponentially, actually. Okay. Janora finally walked into the room after standing outdoor and listening to the entire conversation. She greeted her father and Izuku. And Tenzin's like, Janora, what brings you here? I want Izuku to teach me. Deku kind of looked at Janora confused, and he's like, Teach you? Teach you what? Okay, let me be honest here, Izuku. Your airbending was so much stronger than mine, I literally can't do anything. Deku's like, but my airbending literally physically goes against your principles of do not use airbending for fighting. That is the reason why it's so good. That's not 100% true. Your airbending also used it for evasion, increasing your speed by harnessing it into a single point and then launching yourself forward. Okay. So what you want to learn is compression bending. You want to learn how to compress air down and use it to solidify itself into more of a solid-like state. Yes. Okay, this is gonna be a fun ride, Deku said, as he kind of really couldn't say much against her. And then Tenzin's like, can you please teach the air nomads in general compression bending? Deku's like, okay, sure. Gonna have to give him a crash course in science, but sure. So, Tenzin gathered up all the airbenders. The airbenders were kind of confused why they had been gathered here. Tenzin's like, excuse me, airbenders. We have a new personnel here. He is the Avatar. Everyone looked kind of confused at Tenzin, wondering what did he mean by the Avatar. Tenzin raised his hand to calm the crowd. See, this boy is actually from another dimension, or another realm of existence, where he is the Avatar. And because of this, he's bringing new techniques to airbending as a whole. Deku stepped up, and he's like, hello, my name is Izuku Midoriya. And he spotted some familiar faces in the crowd, predominantly Crystal and Alex, who were sitting out in the crowd. Alex and Crystal kind of smiled when they saw Deku stand up there. And he's like, I'm going to be your new instructor. As Tenzin has explained, I'm an avatar from a different world/dimension. And because of this, I've learned airbending a little bit differently than what you guys have. The airbending I'm going to teach you today is going to be kind of confusing. It's going to be very confusing, especially if you're more used to the air nomad lifestyle that you've been living. But you don't have to use it in the way that it's tend to be used for, Deku said. Deku then hops down in front of him. Everyone can see Deku there. Deku said, okay, so I need everyone to gather around me. Deku said as everyone tries to gather around him, he's like, get closer, get closer, get closer. And then people noticed that they couldn't get any closer. They were kind of confused by this, and Deku's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Can't you guys get closer? They tried to get closer, but they couldn't. See, Deku, before jumping down, had created a shield of compressed air completely around his body, except for small, tiny little holes that people couldn't walk through, but that oxygen can go through, so he can breathe. Deku walked forward and forward and more forward. Every time he walked forward, the group of people would part ways, which kind of surprised people. And then Deku, once he got into the middle of the cloud, slowly started to expand the shield more and more. He knew a quick expansion would have sent some people flying, so he slowly expanded it. People could see that Deku's bending could push them back merely alone. Deku said, this is compressed bending. I know you can't see it, but right now currently there's a dome around me. That's why you guys can't go any further. Compressed bending is compressing the air solid enough to where you can form physical objects out of it. Everyone at the area was kind of shocked. They never thought that Deku could produce something like this, with airbending nonetheless. Tenzin and Jenna were both kind of shocked as well. They had seen what air compression could do, but they never saw air compression on this scale. Deku said, it's still a work in progress, but it is a very useful ability. It can be set up for defensive perimeters as well as offensive attacking, Deku said. As Deku points his hand at a tree, he then creates a compressed wind blade and sends it flying at the tree. The tree got cut in half as it falls over. As you can see, this airbending can be used very aggressively and very dangerously. I can't really explain this airbending very well. It's a little bit harder to explain, mainly because you can't see it. You gotta imagine it and create the image in front of you. Everyone was kind of shocked by Deku by this point still. Deku said, only the strongest of you will be able to stay and learn this bending. I cannot teach all of you, and I have limited time here, so I need to work with a smaller group. Afterwards, the smaller group will be instructed to teach the other groups until eventually almost everyone knows how to use the basics of compression bending. So, I'm going to test to see if anyone can just basically use it. Deku said to form a ball of compressed air. Imagine air getting pushed together and confined into one point. Imagine that point being a ball. People did this as Deku walked around to see if he could feel a ball in the hands. He found 10 people that could have a ball. 2 of them were his friends that he met in the Spirit Forest, which was Crystal and Alex. He had learned that they had been a part of an A-ranked squad, being the second highest ranked squad out of all of them. Of course, they were still below the S-ranked squads, which were very highly used, but they were pretty high up in the A ranks. The other personnel there were all pretty proficient in airbending too. So Deku thought this should be easy. All of them have a base understanding of it. Next day, Deku started teaching them. Crystal and Alex got the hang of it the best, seeing how they had already kind of knew Deku's talking patterns and stuff. Seeing how they had met him before, they really didn't have that much of an issue talking with him. Most people were kind of still on the fence to talk to him, but Crystal and Alex just walked up and talked to him like he's a normal man. Eventually, after 3 weeks of training, all 10 of the personnel could use compression bending to a decent amount. And that they could go. Deku then realized it had been 3 weeks and realized that he should probably get back to his world. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. And if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. I'm very sorry that yesterday's video was short. And I'm sorry the day before that we didn't even hit that. This is probably going to be where I leave off Avatar for a little bit. Now, I know. I'm going to get some comments in the comment section asking why. Well, you see, the main reason why I'm going to leave off Avatar for the moment is that I'm going to do a miniature What If Deku series. And it's going to be, what if Deku was an overpowered protagonist? Now, if you don't know, I've been reading a lot of books, a lot of different light novels and such with overpowered isekai protagonists. And I'm basically going to give Deku the powers of an overpowered isekai protagonist for 300 subs. So, when we hit 300 subs, the video will come out. It'll come out replacing Avatar, and it's going to be, I think, a 3-parter. I'm pretty sure. It might be 4 parts. But if you liked it, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.